Hi everybody, this is Joe Sisman. I'm the creative director of the Pterodome Sports Science Research Center. And the last 3 years of riding footage is, it needs to be recovered. My project for the year I turned 50 involved riding and writing. And right now, I don't have the writing to show for it. I have a few clips that that I've already released, and you've seen what I've been doing at contests, but I don't have the final trick for you because of a technical glitch and a really gnarly hematoma that took me out. But this is what happened in Master of Creativity 2016. So I have no problem with this. But I do want to say I'm going to release the writing. And the reason I'm doing this is because in 2016, when I was 43 years old, I did the Pterodome. And I was so stoked, I blew the ride out. But then I released the footage. But I told 3 people that I didn't make the trick. But you're not allowed to do that. And the plywood hoods have a rule. 5 times clean on video or GTFO. And the night of my coronation, the deal was sealed. And that night, I had a visitation, and this entity said to me, all your life, you have been playing chess with me. I have been playing chase with you. And it became very obvious to me that I could not die without landing that trick 5 times clean on video. Because if you invoice something that you don't fully deliver, it will ruin your life. And I have someone in my life who is the most important thing I've ever seen. And she cannot be married to a ruined person. And I'm not going to have this ruin my life. So anyway, please enjoy the writing that accompanies the riding in this little project I call New Bruises, a life-changing story. Thank you very much. New Bruises, a life-changing story. Chapter 0, the context. Presented by the Pterodome Sports Science Research Center. A foreword by Mike Daly. My pleasure. Sending minor edits in succinct form was one thing. Getting to say everything New Bruises 2023 conjured in me, another. Magic. DIY NBD magic. I'll say this for starters. The frog hopping back from the creek to the porch, and Father, I believe, returning frog to your tank as you slept, has the heft of why I'm a disciple of word, story, song, trick. When do you go to print, as they say? Forward of me to ask, huh? Youps. Mike Daly, Plywood Hoods, Moon Babes of Bicycle City. This is a story of how the creative director of the Terradome Sports Science Research Center developed training methods using himself as a subject to demonstrate their efficacy and that they'll do no harm to you. Experience. Go deep. Reflect. Refine insights until you conquer consequences. Express. Speak only the truth, no matter how ridiculous. This is the story of how the masters appear. They are everywhere, in subtle places that you can only see when you're in ritual. This is the training method developed and validated by the Terradome Sports Science Research Center. Find your masters. I see the Stoke in all the things in the world. I look for 43. The masters appear when I do. Habits are like water running downhill. The water cannot help but cut deep. It happens over time. It happens with little effort. The water just follows gravity. Habits are easy to develop. They can manifest without you even noticing. Avoiding danger here, avoiding punishment there. They develop over time as you live in your world. Whose world do you live in? Whose world do you live in? Look around you right now and determine who constructed the place you're in right now. Is it a room? Is it a vehicle? Is it a natural landscape? Who put you where you are right now? Are you in a building? Are you in a state of a union? Are you in a state of mind? Where are you right now and who put you there? Where are you headed now? Where are you going next? Why are you going there? Who is putting you there? What is your next choice? What do you want to be when you grow up? A firefighter? A happy firefighter? A happy, wealthy firefighter? What do you want to feel? What do you want to know? I want to know how to invent and learn tricks that feel magical. I want to master this capability so that I have a high probability of being happy in any situation I find or put myself in. Then I can do anything I want. One thing I learned along the way is that my world gets structured one choice at a time. It does this over time. It does this naturally. As I make simple choices, I structure my world, and that world gives me structure that in turn reinforces my habits. Another thing I learned is that I can choose the things in my world that I will naturally interact with and will reinforce habits. When I realized this, I had a moment of clarity. I know where only a portion of my world came from. The other portion is reinforcing habits I don't notice. If I stay busy developing habits intentionally, I won't have time for my hidden habits. Just by intentionally practicing a craft, I can discover my hidden habits and correct them. Discovering hidden habits does two things. First, for good habits, I can make them better and reap the rewards. And number two, for bad habits, I can correct them and avoid the risks. This mystery unwinds naturally when I consciously correct one habit all day, every day. Like the bad habit I have of missing the rear pegs when I jump from my front pegs. I did a trick on a bike when I was 43. It felt so magical that I posted it on YouTube for my friends. Then I conquered Red Bull Clash'em with it. I show it now to technology audiences as a metaphor for a platform, but here's a catch. At the very end of that video, at the most boring part of it, I made a mistake that almost no one cares about. Not no one, almost
No one. The people who made the world I love care about that mistake. They know the dangers of accepting praise without fully delivering the goods. They also know the rewards of delivering the goods before you accept praise. They know I carry debt. They know I don't like debt. They know I pay my debts. It is a really hard trick. I pulled when I was 43 years old. It's so hard that no one else has done it. People have tried. They told me it's terrifying and dangerous. I told them I know. My life depends on doing it without mistake. To be who I want to be when I grow up, I have no other choice but to stop everything else and commit myself to doing it without mistake. Imagine that. Small town kid gets a bike and falls in love with it. Sells the bike and moves to South Miami Beach to begin his working life. Buys another bike when he gets flashbacks from playing a bike video game. Finds underutilized buildings to rent so he can ride all the time. Then makes silly videos of friends having fun riding bikes. Then gets kicked out of amateur class and has to compete pro. Then rides against his heroes and gets his ass handed to him. Then works with a sports psychologist. Then makes videos of having new kinds of fun riding bikes. Then does one trick no one believed was possible. My name is Joe Sisman. In my bike videos, I introduce myself as the creative director of the Pterodome Sports Science Research Center. I am living a beautifully happy life. It's the life I dreamed of enjoying. I'm working on a new bike video. Today, I'm filming behind-the-scenes footage, like how Stallone got in shape before the cameras filmed the training scenes in Rocky. You are about to read the outline for that video. I don't know how long it will be. I don't know how many of the characters will be hidden in subliminal elements of the sets and wardrobe. The outline explains what's been on my mind about this project. It highlights the characters and their significance. Like Rocky, the production process is part of making the story believable. Please enjoy. Flatland Assassins. Killing the game by first killing your ego. New Bruises, a life-changing story. Chapter 1, The Dream. Presented by the Pterodome Sports Science Research Center. Dedication. The dream is a novel accomplishment. Pro tip, it ain't easy. Freestyle BMX saved my life. I decided to think about how that's even possible. To celebrate turning 50, I put my understanding into words. Eat pain, build strength, learn to speak, follow your language back to the source, tell the full story. The frog speaks to everyone. Everyone hears the frog. The state banned the frog. In my world, we don't call it the frog, but everyone hears the frog. The New Age. Back in the day. The world was different when I was growing up. It was a world of turbulence. I was an observant kid, and I got injured. My father was a soldier who found a true Korean master to teach me discipline, self-defense, and confidence. I learned those tricks at a young age compared to kids these days. I found BMX as a black belt. I rode with discipline. I made art with confidence. I took art on tour with rock and rollers and kept my nose clean. I took art to South Miami Beach and kept my nose clean. Then I found the digital world. I learned to solve puzzles for people in that world. I make my living there now. Discipline, BMX, art, and digital are tools for storytelling. That's what this story within a zine is about. One more story point before we turn the page. There's been a frog appearing in my dreams since childhood. As a kid, I endured headaches and body pain. These accompanied painful yet enlightening dreams of the frog. That world of pain drove me to learn how to navigate pain. I figured out how to control my dreams. I figured out how to soothe my stomach cramps. I figured out how to meditate through migraines. That prepared me for new forms of pain after childhood. On more than a few occasions as I grew up, I discovered a transcendent experience on the other side of pain. In time, I discovered other people who understood that pain accompanies transformation. They're fantastical people, like characters in a dream. They'd come and go on their own time, and when they appeared, I knew I had to be at the ready. One such group of characters goes by the name the Plywood Hoods. They've got their own culture, language, and rites of passage. The Plywood Hoods transformed the trajectory of the BMX craft. Their craft is still practiced across the world today. I heard them long before they heard me. Inuits have 50 words for snow. I have 43 words for pain. I didn't ride for 8 years after South Miami Beach. I was learning digital. The years without BMX were occupied by an in-between kind of pain. Then something happened in 2002. The Dave Mera Freestyle BMX 2 video game got me stoked to buy a bike. Not long after, that in-between kind of pain faded. BMX changed my life. Present day. BMX is my North Star. The concepts and rites are in a manuscript titled The Way of the Stoke. Riders who read and follow the way experience happiness that persists. Pro tip, only trust happy Stoke dealers with a scar and the story of how they got it. I am the creative director of the Terradome Sports Science Research Center. We put the Stoke to work. We are Templars of the Way of the Stoke. Our direction is set using guidance from a council of mentors and coaches. We craft word permutations. We know the arrangement is right when the feeling arrives. The science of the feeling of belief. When I get the words right, it means I got the thought right. When I think right, I act right. When I act right, you can see the trick. It's a magic trick on a bike in a video labeled BMX Flatland. This is how I do the tricks I do. They're magic tricks. When we get the concepts right, it means we got the reflection right. When we reflect right, we create right. When we create right, others can absorb the trick. It's a magic trick on a bike in a video labeled BMX Flatland. This is how we do the tricks we do. They're magic tricks. I noticed something curious about magic tricks and martial arts and storytelling. It's brutally simple. It's brutally honest. And it requires brute force of will to not quit once you have committed to learning the trick. Inventing the trick requires added force of will, because at that point in time, nobody had survived the trial of solving the puzzle of the trick. Inventing tricks is play, but it isn't child's play. Do your own laundry, prepare your own meals, pay for your own education. Find a true life partner and reciprocate joy. Refuse free money from the state. It came from others who worked. Too often it's bait. Do this every day without exception, and you will build the strength to learn BMX tricks. Your tricks are your language. Only do tricks you want to do. Only if you choose, invent the tricks you want to see. Disregard anyone who tells you to do tricks they want to see. Tell them to build the strength they need to learn the tricks they want to see. Seek out the writers who invent trick languages you dream about. Talk with them about their tricks. Share the details you see in their tricks. Share the details of their tricks you see in other writers' tricks. Seek the trick language route. Follow it wherever it leads without hesitation. When you pursue the route, you'll find yourself near Amish country in Pennsylvania, in a town that birthed the band Live. When you listen to Live's lyrics, you'll have an awakening. You'll figure out why the plywood hoods preserve and practice the right of the one. The frog speaks to everyone. Everyone hears the frog. The state banned the frog. In my world, we don't call him the frog, but everyone hears the frog. Your next day. Flatland assassins. Killing the game by first killing your ego. New Bruises. A life-changing story. Chapter 2. The Frog. Presented by the Terradome Sports Science Research Center. This is an alien frog being who comes to Earth to give people wisdom. He conquered... The Terra Doom is the frog. A quantum leap from front world to back world. Oppo. This occurred to me while practicing in a simulator. I replicated all the proportions and most of the conditions. I was calm and clear. I set out to do what the frog did. Leap between two worlds, water and land. To do it, I must commit. The frog speaks to everyone. Everyone hears the frog. Our first meeting. The scene was the front room of my first home, down the street from Ray's mountain bike park. I was sitting on my grandfather's lap. He was reading to me. From behind the chair across the room, a green head peeked out. Fear consumed me. I lost my voice. My grandfather stood up, put me down, and walked out of the room seemingly on command. Without my voice, my grandfather couldn't know I was in trouble. The frog darted at me, pinned me to the ground, then breathed on my face with yogic exhales. The sound from his mouth left an imprint. The terror woke me up. My parents rushed in. It was Kermit the Frog, and he breathed on me. Over the years, I'd remember variations. In one, the frog is white with black eyes. In another, I observed the scene of myself sitting on my grandfather's lap from the other side of the room. The frog emerges as before, but from behind those two characters. Then the frog darts at me, the observer. How could I be both the observer and a character in the dream? How many frames of reference can I occupy? Can I occupy the sleeper's frame of reference if the dream goes haywire and I want to wake up early? I grew up in my family's second home. It backed up against a long creek and woods. I'd spend hours in the water looking for frogs. I caught one, brought it home, put it in an aquarium, and kept it for a day or so. Then my mom suggested I let him go back to his family. So I talked to him while I walked him back to where I met him and put him in the creek. The next morning, I woke up and he was in the aquarium. Your father found him sitting on the front porch when he got home last night. You should say goodbye and put him back in the creek. I must have been 7 or 8 at that time. Ever since, my mind has been occupied by the question, how could this be? An experience like that has quite an effect on a child. For an industrious child, that question leads to discoveries. And one discovery was special. I understand what it feels like to have a friend who speaks a different language. My next frog friend was big. I caught him in the pond upstream. I put him in a tall bucket with a grate on top to keep him safe. He was dead the next morning. Do not hold anyone you love captive. The best that can ever come from it is a lesson you'll never forget and could have learned from a wise person who cared enough to tell you a story. Pro tip: find someone who cares about you and listen to the stories they tell. If you suspect they're instructive stories, you're right. The first dream that changed me. My father was a soldier. He had a gun room in the basement. I opened that door to find the frog sitting on the floor, wearing a policeman's hat, tossing and catching an 8-ball with one hand. He looked up at me with full confidence that I'd arrive to meet him at the ready. Fear shot through me. My voice was gone. He darted. I squeezed my eyes. I woke up. I'd never fear any dream again. Learn to wake up. Learn to stop playing. Learn to assert your will in defense. Learn to change the game. That began a years-long quiet period during which the frog didn't occupy my dreams. I used the frog's first 2 lessons to escape the captivity of pain and predations. I turned those lessons into strategies for living the life I wanted. And then a tiny chirp. In 1994, I met the monks of the Drepung Losing Monastery, cleaning up in a restroom before the show. All at once, something hit me square in the head. I must wake up and make something new in my life. I've lived a creative life. Back in the day, I struggled to put my visions into words. I was mesmerized by other cultures. I adored the feeling. I felt enlightened. But my feeling of marvel came from a feeling of novelty that only existed when I had one foot in each world. I didn't live it. I tried to use it to my advantage. I found myself attempting to articulate the marvelous, only to increase sales of shrimp rocks at music festivals during a recession. The dream I can't forget. I laid down one afternoon between tour stops. WOMAD was 3 days from then. I needed to go under to clear my head and focus up. I had a sound and light machine, binaural beats and flashing LEDs mounted inside glasses. It puts your brain into a theta state. I chose the most intense setting. I asked to see my real parents in the dream. I felt her presence and hesitated. So I looked in the mirror for indirection while I acclimated to the idea. The door opened behind me, and she was there. She moved like the frog, but much slower. I gathered the nerve to face her. I felt the most scared I'd ever felt. I moved through the fear and embraced her. I felt the most love I'd ever felt. Then I saw the other, black with a headdress. Something wasn't right about the partner in my apartment. The dark one approached her, but I backed him off. Back from the dream. I made drawings of them and wrote their names. Mom and Dead. Be careful with whom you share visions. You'll know, but not immediately, if the audience loves you or hates you. The remarkable part happened 3 days after that dream, At WOMAD in DC, the band Live took stage. Before any music started, the frontman spoke to the audience. And then one day you meet the parents you've never seen. No applause followed. I think that went right over everyone's head. Imagine that. A new chirp. In 2010, I found a reason to make a temple to the forces and practices that remind me of the lessons I learned from the people I met who also heard the frog. That temple goes by the unassuming name, the Terradome Sports Science Research Center. Inside the temple, it's understood. We only share our dreams with the people who love us. We test by sharing special dreams to observe whether a listener responds by sincerely or ironically calling us crazy. The people who don't sincerely call us crazy get to hear the true stories of the frog. We tell one another our stories of the frog. We all have stories of the frog. Every crew is constituted on the moral code of their frog. The crew's expression is the expression of their frog. Some crews were assembled to make money. Some crews were assembled to make tricks. Some crews were assembled to understand how tricks are made into money. Some crews are assembled to understand how tricks are made. Frog Bars is an alien entity sent to Earth to find fit humans and to forge those fit humans into vessels to contain and propagate the Stoke. This is the mission that came to mind when Chad DeGroot, who is an alien, texted the photo that became the iconography for the frog. On February 12th, 2022, at 2:01 p.m. Eastern, 7 days after Chad sent that photo, 7 hours after my coronation, while lying in bed, I was visited by an old friend. He was otherworldly. He used his voice for the first time. All your life, you have been playing chess with me, and I have been playing chase with you. I opened my eyes in a state of hyper stoke. Of all the crews that ever assembled, the Plywood Hoods are the greatest. The spirit of the Plywood Hoods lives. The world knows this because the world witnessed a new member's coronation. It was the first time any such coronation was recorded and broadcast to the world for the people to witness. It looked like a dream come true. Imagine that. The frog has visited me throughout my life when I examined a choice with a new perspective and a readiness to commit. Now I ask the frog questions like, what now? Then I listen to what it believes I need to observe to perceive the right next move. I think this is completely natural. I've read about historical figures using naps to work through engineering puzzles. It's fun and brings me happiness to see puzzles worked out in my mind's eye, regardless of whether I'm asleep or awake. The frog, by all accounts, is a recurring character in my dreams from which I derive insight, perspective, and feelings. When I feel comfort, I have confidence to act. When I act and good things happen, I build faith. The world is full of chaos. You must live in it. See one thing that gives you comfort, act, then live the life you want. The frog always offers constructive ideas. The frog has a positive moral track record. It's likely that I'm not the only person to have a recurring character in my dreams with a positive moral track record. The frog is a good friend. Listen to your dream characters. Learn the ones who come back to you. Speak the truth to them. Interrogate them. Ask them why they're here. Ask them what they have for you. Ask them what they want. A friend wants what's best for you and can explain in detail why it's best for you and what you must do to achieve it. A friend will know when the time is right for you to hear what's best for you. A friend will anticipate your response. This is the long game a friend will play with you. A friend will understand your language. You will understand your friend's language. You'll speak to one another in that shared language. This is a code that the people around you won't be able to interpret. Only your friends will. Learning to speak calls for learning to listen and learning to hear. Learning to hear calls for learning to trust. Learning to trust calls for learning to test and validate. Learning to validate calls for time and attention. Upwards of 50 years in some cases. A path to happiness is true friends who work every day to pursue a craft that produces observable results that all friends can speak about. Pro tip, it ain't easy. It takes work. This is the frog, a character in my dreams since childhood who appears at pivotal decision points, offering perspective to guide me towards a life of happiness, a life of purpose and collaboration to create objects, moments, and experiences that surprise and delight a vast network of friends. This is how the Stoke is propagated across the planet. I call him the frog. As an icon, its name is Frog Bars. The frog speaks to everyone. Everyone hears the frog. The state banned the frog. In our world, we don't all call him the frog, but everyone hears the frog. Right here, what you hear. Right here, what you call it. Flatland Assassins. Killing the game by first killing your ego. New Bruises, a life-changing story. Chapter 3, The Trick. Presented by the Terradome Sports Science Research Center. The trick? The sneaky touch. I'll be clear with you. I don't make the rules. I'm subject to them because my heroes live by them. If you do a trick on video and touch, it doesn't count. If you do a trick on video and sneaky touch and then edit it out, it double doesn't count. Sebastian Keep knows this, Rodeo Peanut knows this, Flat Bible knows this. Imagine that. My choice is an illusion. I already know what I'll do. The only unknown is when. The plywood hoods have a rule. Once is luck, 5 times means you learned it. My coronation sealed the deal. 5 times on video or GTFO. No pardon for being 50 years old. Training is what generates BMX magic tricks. My training starts by asking why. Why gives me purpose. Why connects me to the Stoke. The Stoke brings balance. The Stoke guides the masters. Masters like Tony Robbins. Incidentally, Tony Robbins overlooked the Stoke. Emotional state leads to your life story, leads to your strategy for achieving a goal. But the Stoke brings about the state. Right now, I'm mining the deep Stoke for fuel to condition myself to learn the trick. The trick is a quantum leap from front world to back world, oppo. The trick emerges from the training. The training requires the Stoke. Stories can demonstrate training. They work how instruction can't. In Rocky Balboa, the Duke tells Rocky what Rocky can't do. It's a long list that ends with one thing Rocky can do: hit hard. That scene inspired the trick. The trick is designed to be a moat. Too hazardous, too painful, too complicated to be replicated by anyone other than me. I want the trick for myself as something no one in the world will do. A gem, my offspring. My training formula is clear. What I can't do equals what I make mistakes attempting. To learn to do it, I must learn the mistakes, then correct the mistakes, then repeat until I perfect my attempts. Learning mistakes is part of an honest life. Studying mistakes, frame by frame, is painstaking. I eat that pain. The trick is quick. The crux is 2 video frames, 1/10 of 1 second. The crux of the trick is the takeoff, the spring. My mistakes occur in my body after they originate in my mind. To correct the way my body moves, I must correct the way my mind reflects. My training method is bespoke because the trick is novel. Along my training journey, I'm having an unusual experience. I presume this is the story of making something new. I'm telling this story because the digital world is abundant with content about what's already been done. ABD. No trick can be learned until it's understood. A master is needed to learn a trick that's not understood. I train to maintain the perfect mental state that leads to a perfect takeoff. Imagine that. I attempt the trick for 2 hours. Beyond that, I get depleted. When I'm depleted, my body doesn't move quickly enough to nail the takeoff. My body needs up to 3 minutes of recovery between attempts. I need recovery when the peg hits my ankle bone, or I aggravate a tendon, or I get scared by a close call, or to recatch my breath, or to resettle my heart rate, or to reset my thoughts. I train to maintain focus. I make my life a mental game. Every decision I make with focus. I use ritual to generate focus. Every morning, the same routine. Every session, the same routine. Every evening, the same routine. I detect variations in my routine. I correct the variations. Within focus, I notice all the connections between all the things I choose to do. Imagine that. My mission of choice is to grow. The trick is the evidence of my growth. The story of the mission is the travel log. I'm repeating to tell the story of what I learned from rock and roll tours. I'm using the skills I have today to tell the story of what I learned yesterday and how I use it today. This is my cycle of learning: experience, reflect, express. I'm writing the story for myself to prepare for my future mission, whatever that may be. I'm writing the story for you, the next pupil who will study with the masters. This story is a breadcrumb trail designed to lead pupils to believe that BMX has masters. Some of those masters taught me. This is a story of life through the eyes of a BMX rider. Think about masters. The idea of mastery changes the way I see the world. A master is one who achieves mastery of a domain of knowledge or skill. But if you ascribe slave owner to the word, you lose the concept of mastery. Then you become a fool. If you choose to live in a world where masters exploit slaves, then you live in a prison as a slave. Do not accept being treated as a slave. Do not eradicate the concept of masters nor of mastery. Words matter. BMX masters confront rivals. 2 such rivals are Oppo frog bars and the Dark Stoke. They're symbols of a system of enslavement. To resist enslavement, I invite you to embrace BMX. You keep what you make. Marxism is the state that banned the frog. This is clear to me now. because my mind got clear while training for the trick. Clearing my mind makes the trick come into focus. As my mind gets clearer, other things get easier too. The trick gets easier each day I focus on it. Out of reverence for frog bars, from this point forward, I rename the trick from the pterodome to the frog. Imagine that. A reminder, frog bars is an alien entity sent to Earth to find and forge fitting humans to be vessels for the Stoke. I'm on a mission to seek mastery of a BMX magic trick. My life becomes clear while I'm on the mission. My life changes while I'm on the mission. My life encounters masters while I'm on the mission. The masters notice me on the mission. They appear to me and they teach me. Then they vanish. Imagine that. I'm changing my life to be the person who routinely performs the world's first no-handed jump from front wheel to back wheel, 7 years after I first did it at age 43. This video project and its social campaign and written word is the anticipatory answer to the inevitable question, what on earth were you thinking? I would like to thank my training partners in order of appearance. My grandfather, my father, Master Sung Ho Kim, my BMX bike, the spirit of the plywood hoods, my antics hero, Raybo, my troublemaking partner, Zach, my life partner, Angie, my co-founders, Andy Johnson, Scott Nagy, Phil Brunette, my moral compass, Todd Carter, my culture professor, Ephraim Catlow, my future team manager, Brett Downs, my coach, Marty Copa, my accountability partner, Flat Bible, my sponsor, Chris Young, my Sherpa, Claude Hickman, my life coach, The Human One. Special thanks to the frog for being in my life throughout my life. This page intentionally left to be written. Flatland Assassins, killing the game by first killing your ego.
One pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small, and the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall.
Set your system's volume control for slightly above the normal listening level.